I want to go right to Don Boudreaux, one half of the mastermind behind the great blog Cafe Hayek, which is a part of my daily diet. It's sound mind and a sound body. It's important that you exercise for your body every day and read Cafe Hayek to enlighten your mind. It'll change your life and how you view the world. Professor Don Boudreaux. Good morning, Professor. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for those kind words.
You got it. Honestly, I can't thank you enough for the work you put in that blog every day. It's just really fantastic. The price of gas is going up, Professor, and of course, this is the fault of the speculators. They're raising the price of oil, and they need to be stopped. What do you think? What do you think? Break this down for us.
It has nothing to do, does it, with the turmoil in the Middle East. It has nothing to do with the fall in the value of the dollar, created, of course, by the Federal Reserve's very loose monetary policy. It has nothing to do with the current administration's not only refusal to expand the ability to explore and drill for oil, but its apparent willingness to further constrict that ability. Prices reflect underlying economic realities. It's not speculators. We have to ask, why would speculators be responsible? Why didn't they do this 3 months ago, or 3 years ago, or 10 years ago? Speculators, they just go into the market and they try to predict trends. And if they predict those trends wrong, they lose a lot of money. So it's not caused by speculators. It's caused by underlying economic realities, some of which are out of our control, such as turmoil in the Middle East, some of which is in our control, such as Obama's refusal to allow more drilling.
Interesting. And reality has been the key word of the day. That's what John Allison was talking about, how you need to look at reality and make decisions based off of that as opposed to throwing them away at the beginning. Break it down for us if you can. Like what are oil markets? What is a speculator? What do they do? Who are these people and what do they do?
Look, in a way, anybody who invests all investments are speculative. If you buy something today hoping it's going to go up in value, you buy some stock in Microsoft, you're speculating that it's going to go up in value. You may be right, you may be wrong. If you're right, you make a profit. If you're wrong, you suffer a loss. What speculators in oil markets do is they buy claims on future supplies of oil. And if they think that oil in the future is going to be priced higher than it is today, they're going to buy a lot of those claims. And, if they're right, yeah, they make a profit. But you know what? They also serve a very important social good. If, in fact, the price of oil is going to be higher in the future, what that means is oil is going to be even more scarce, more precious in the future than it is today. So what speculators do is they transfer oil, and if you talk about oil speculators, they transfer oil from times when it's relatively more abundant, and they sell it back to us at times when it's relatively more scarce, and that's good. It causes prices today to be higher, yes, but it causes prices in the future to be lower than they otherwise would be. What speculation does is tend to even out the trajectory of prices, and that's helpful. There's virtually no economist, regardless of where they sit in the political spectrum, as long as they don't write for the New York Times. Actually, even Paul Krugman has been pretty good on this. There's virtually no economist who thinks that speculators are bad. And most all economists understand that speculation is a natural part of investment, and it actually serves good social purposes rather than evil ones. But speculation sounds bad to the general public, and so politicians glom onto it as an excuse for their own failings and their own inabilities to control reality.
I think what you're talking about there, and correct me if I'm wrong, is signals. So that they provide signals. And I know you talk a lot about this on your blog, and so does your colleague Russ Roberts. Tell us what a signal is and how that helps us in a free market.
Well, look, if for whatever reason oil is becoming more scarce, then in an ideal world, we want oil consumers to treat it as a more precious commodity. It's becoming more scarce. So how do we know if it's becoming more scarce? The price tells us. When it becomes more scarce, the owners of oil supplies are able to fetch a higher price for it. That higher price signals, first of all, to consumers, look, this stuff is not as abundant as it once was, so don't use it as much. If you use it as much as you did before, you'll be wasting it. And so it's a signal to consumers to cut back on their consumption, which they should do because the stuff is more scarce now. It's also a signal, importantly, to producers. It tells producers, hey, look, you want a profit opportunity? Prices over here are rising. And so stop doing what you're doing now and transfer some of your efforts over into oil exploration or gasoline refining, because prices there are higher. So it signals producers to move their efforts into those areas where consumers really value the stuff, higher, oil when the prices are rising, and it signals consumers at the same time to be more prudent in their use of the stuff.
Oh, that's brilliant. The producers aspect is so brilliant. And if we had a free market, then oil producers, ExxonMobil, Shell, the rest, would produce more oil, but they can't because the government won't let them do it. So they're the real people who we need to be focused on, not the evil speculators.
Yeah, and we talk about, this is, I'm sure you've made this point to your listeners before, but we talk about energy independence, which I think is kind of a hokey concept. The oil market is a worldwide market. But to the extent that we don't like importing oil, well, it's crazy not to have oil being drilled in the Alaskan, in Anwar, for example, in the Alaskan tundra. And a lot of the environmental hysterics that are generated cause people to irrationally forget, as John Allison, who's a great guy, would say, forget that, the reality is we got a lot of oil under there. Let's go get it. And then that'll make it living standards for ordinary Americans lower, and we would reduce the amounts of oil that we import from abroad.
Tell us about, I remember seeing this on Mark Perry's blog, which is the other part of a daily balanced diet, Carpe Diem. And
he's a student of mine.
No kidding. He's fantastic. And I remember reading some blog posts about him about oil or markets in general, whether it's sugar, which is another corrupted government deal, but whatever it is, whatever the market is, how the speculators create stability in the market. I remember he talked about, I don't know if it was sugar or something, wheat or something, where there was no, or were there too many government regulations, or there weren't allowed to be speculators, so the cost was just up, down, just totally all over the place. So tell us about stability, how that affects.
Well, that's what I was mentioning earlier when I said it keeps the trajectory of prices the same. Not the same, but it keeps the trajectory of prices of commodities more even than it would otherwise be.
Yeah, how so?
I would call the blog post too, and I can't remember now just what commodity, but there is some commodity in the U.S. where speculation in it has virtually all been outlawed, and so we see these wild swings in prices. And in commodity markets where speculation, fortunately, which is still most of them, speculation still is allowed, then what happens is in periods, and this is the stability part, in periods where the supplies are decreasing dramatically, speculators sell during those periods, which causes the prices to fall a little bit more. And when supplies are increasing or demand is decreasing, speculators buy. That's not very. I realize that wasn't a very clear explanation. Speculators sell when demands are especially high, and speculators buy when demands are relatively low, and that tends to even things out.
Interesting. Okay, fascinating. I got one more question for you, and I know we're going a little late here, and I appreciate your time. Talking with Professor Don Boudreaux from George Mason University. Tell us about the government regulations in speculation. We'll focus on oil speculation. People say there's not enough. They cite some law where they've rescinded, they've gotten taken away of certain regulations. Do you think there's not enough? There's too much? Is there a proper amount? What's the role of regulation in speculation?
The only regulation there should be in speculation is just protecting people's contract rights. There should be no government regulation of speculation. Speculation is just investment. Why should the government stop people from buying commodities, actually physical commodities, or buying options on future commodities? Why should government stop? If people spending their own money, they're not going to spend it stupidly. Some of them are going to win, some of them are going to lose. But as I said earlier, we know both throughout history, and we have good economic theory to say that speculation, when it is unregulated, serves the public interest. It doesn't hurt the public interest. The analogy I like to use is, prices are a signal, as I said, and prices are messengers about what the underlying economic reality is. And speculators help those prices to be more truthful, help those prices to reflect that underlying economic reality better than they would. And if you stop speculation, it's like killing the messenger. We don't like it when when oil becomes more scarce. And that's unfortunate. I agree. I don't like paying higher prices at the pump either. Right? But that's the reality. And you're not going to change that reality by punishing people and killing the messenger that makes that enables that price to be higher. The higher price reflects the lower supply, reflects the more uncertain supply. That reality doesn't change when you outlaw speculation, and doesn't change when you outlaw price rises. That only makes things worse.
Wonderful. Bro, I got one more quick question. I know we're way late here, but some people say that, well, oil speculation is different because the people buying it aren't using it, right? They're not like, you got like the end users who are doing it, but you also have like hedge funds and banks and stuff. Does that make a difference to you?
No, it doesn't matter at all. I mean, there are lots of things. I mean, first of all, that's not unique to oil at all. I mean, all commodities are like that. And once again, speculators, we focus on speculators when they make money. Sometimes they do make lots of money. But no one feels sorry for them when they lose lots of money. And they often lose a lot of money. If people are buying oil today thinking it's going to rise in price in the future, and let's say that stability returns to the Middle East sooner than markets expect, well, oil prices will then fall. And the speculators who bought anticipating to sell in the future at much higher prices, they're going to have to sell those claims on oil futures at much lower prices. They're going to take a loss. Whether they actually take physical possession of it is utterly irrelevant.
Wonderful. Professor Don Boudreaux, George Mason, what is your website that people need to look at every single day?
Cafe Hayek. It's www.cafehayek.com.
Professor, I can't thank you enough for the time you spent with us today and just the time you work on this blog. And I said before that you and some other the great free market economists around today, I think, are some of the most important people in the entire discussion and future of this country as you continue to spread these free markets.
You do great work too. Keep it up.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day, Don.